This is an appeal to heaven, to our Creator, to all beings of love and light, to assist us here to not only overcome, but to overwhelm the forces of energy that seem determined to repress us, our lives, and our very spirits. As children of your divine creation, we recognize we need assistance. We need more to awaken to the truth of the injustices. We need more to awaken to take action with us to alter or destroy the systems that are establishing as school policy, as public policy, as equity policy, and all notions of minds willing to bend our free will into conformity to theirs. We will not. Our will is thy will. And so long as we are honoring our free will spirit, a spirit born with unalienable rights, to express our creative, compassionate, intelligent selves, then we choose to exert our free divine selves in defiance of any authority any choose to impose. Let this be so, and so it is.
Thank you, Charlie.
My pleasure.
Hello, my name's Ron Vroman. I'm the old white man talking head for the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly. Today I have a few things I want to talk about, and then I want to introduce Tina Tressel and what she's doing for us. Wonderful lady, lots of courage. But before we get to that, set the table a little bit. Some people want to know about the flag behind me. It's the peace flag. It's the civil flag, the civilian flag of the United States of America. It is not authorized by the United States Congress, which hasn't operated lawfully since March 1861. But in any case, it is not the national anthem, pardon me, the national ensign, which is the stars and stripes that you see everywhere and that I always thought was our flag, but it's actually the military flag. And I was in the military, so I understand about national ensign. We flew it on our ships. But in any case, that's the flag. Another thing people don't know a great deal about is our Constitution. And they don't even comprehend what a constitutional Republican form of government is. So I want to touch on that a little bit. And then we have a grand jury coming up soon. And I want to touch on that a little bit. So let's start with the grand jury. A grand jury is formed one of two ways, by the people or by a prosecutor. Mostly on Oregon, it's done by prosecutors. But when you read the law, you read the Oregon statutes on what is supposed to be done, we, you and I, can call a grand jury. The problem is the court administrators won't do the work for us. They will not contact the jury pool for us. So we have to do it ourselves. And we have. We've done it successfully 3 times. And when you have a grand jury, it has two jobs. One, it has to supply the prosecutors, the people that are responsible for putting the evildoers in the dock and trying them. That's the prosecutor's job. That's why we elect them. That's why we have district attorneys. So that's one of the ways that a grand jury operates, and that's to provide the 38 prosecutors on Oregon with a presentment. The next thing the grand jury does is we must do it ourselves. So when you read what the Supreme Court of the United States has said, and they've said lots of stuff, most of it unlawful and de facto, they say they are not required to provide an Amendment 7 court. It's not their job, not the job of the United States, which is located in Washington, District of Columbia, and forts, ports, and lawful buildings throughout the several states. That's what the United States is. They are a public service company, a government service company for the United States of America, me and you, with a Republican form of government, meaning that within the laws of our specific state and the way we have functioned constitutionally, we didn't have anything to do with writing it up. It was done way before our time. But they got together and they wrote a constitution, and it's a reasonable document. to operate by. It's an operations manual for Oregon. Of course, we can't get the exact operation manual from either the National Archives, the Library of Congress, or Oregon Archives. They just won't show it to us. They will not show our statehood documents. But we have facsimiles. We have documents that are printed that are allegedly legitimate, so we use what we have. And a representative form of government constitutionally is what we're supposed to have. We have not had that nationally since March 1861, and we haven't had it on Oregon since November 1910. We've had color law. So our function, our duty, our goal is to return Oregon to a constitutional Republican form of government in 2022. And we're going to do it through a lawful process. And there's probably several ways to do it, but we're going to do it lawfully with the grand jury. Our grand jury is going to be meeting again on the 25th of this month. I won't tell you where because I don't want to spill the beans now. But if you contact us, www.orsja.org, we'll tell you where and when if you're a member of the jury pool. And we have several hundred people now in the jury pool. So it shouldn't be too hard when Tanya calls the jury for one to show up at the specified place at the specified time, and we need approximately 20. It's not a fixed rule. Oh, yeah, I want to read this. Oh, it's a good thing you were prepared, Ron. Yeah. What I wanted to read was how we got the authority to do what we're doing.
Could you also explain the difference between a Republican form of government and the Republican Party?
Yes. Yes. A Republican form of government means that we hire and elect and send people to a Congress to represent us in Congress because we can't all go ourselves. So we've developed a way, started with, I think, the Greeks thousands of years ago, of electing people to do the proper job and sending them to where the Congress is assembled. And that is a Republican form of government. It's not democracy. You hear democracy all the time. Democracy is mob rule. The majority rules in a democracy. In a republic, we have a Republican form of government. We have a constitution. The democracy wants to override the Constitution and let majority rule, which is not the way. The majority does not pay that much attention to the minority, and the minority has rights also. They just can't vote them away or take them away. And the Republicans, formerly the Whigs, usurped the name, and now half of the country thinks Republican stands for the Republican Party, the GOP. Not true. The Republican Party is a usurpation. I personally think they're slightly better than the Democratic Party, but that's another story. So we get our authority by Article 1, Section 1 of the Oregon Constitution. We declare that all men, when they form a social compact, are equal in right, that all power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness. And they have at all times a right to alter, reform, or abolish the government in such manner as they may think proper. Well, we notified everybody that we were Article 1, Section 1 of the Oregon Constitution, and we were going to take back our government. Well, so far, nobody's rebutted that. We've held 3 grand juries. and provided presentments to 38 prosecutors on Oregon, none of which have done their job. They're elected, supposedly in a free and fair election, which is probably not true. One of our members was in the Washington County Election Committee. He was in charge of counting votes. He had the machine that did the counting. And they came to him once and said, you can stop counting now. And he said, but I haven't finished. And they said, yes, but you've reached a statistical conclusion. You don't need to count anymore. And if somebody wants to challenge it, they can pay to have a recount. But we're going to call the election now on a statistical. Oh, so he quit working for him. But in any case, we're supposed to have a Republican form of government. The sheriffs and the district attorneys are supposed to be working for us for our peace, safety, and happiness. 38 prosecutors have presentments from 3 grand juries, and they have not done their job. They need to either self-correct or be removed. The first grand jury was on Kate Brown, Ron Wyden, Jeff Merkley, and Suzanne Bonamici, and they were all found to have been oath breakers without honor and cannot hold a position of trust. The next one was on the 90 legislators for Oregon when they held their session January 21st, and they were all guilty of breaking their oath and holding a legislative session without us present. Therefore, they have no honor and they cannot hold a position of trust. Then we held one on the Oregon Health Administration and their 46 top executives that they are oath breakers without honor and cannot hold a position of trust. That's just how it is. They did it. The grand jury found that to be true. And we have provided presentments to the 38 prosecutors. Then in the de jure, which is of the people, and not de facto, which is legitimate and not unlawful and illegitimate, we held 2 trials in Salem. And we found the first 4 and the second 90 all guilty. And that initiated a verdict from an Amendment 7 court of record, which is us. And that verdict has no appeal in law. So our job is not to enforce. Our job is to do our job, grand jury and jury in our Jural assembly. It's up to those elected on Oregon, which is 36 district attorneys and 36 sheriffs, and the JAG for the Oregon National Guard, and the Attorney General for the state of Oregon. They all know their job, and they all refuse to do it. That's not our responsibility. That's their responsibility. They will eventually self-correct or they'll be removed. That's just the way it is. We are changing them out this year. It's not going to be next year. We are returning Oregon to a constitutional Republican form of government in 2022. Everybody that wants to join is welcome. But we don't need everybody. We don't need a majority. We're a Republican form of government. Those representing us will do the job. But it's also something like in the Revolution. When Washington took a 5,000-man army to do battle with, I think it was Cornwall or Wallace, or anyhow, to do battle with the general for the King of England, they would be prepared to battle the Revolutionary Army of 5,000 men. But when the dawn of the battle arrived, there was 15,000 men with cannon facing them. The people joined the battle at that time. They were not in the army. they were the militia. They will fight this battle, but they're not going to go over to Washington or Idaho to fight a battle. The people in Washington and Idaho have to fight their battle. That's what we're doing, changing them out this year. So on the 25th, we're going to have a grand jury meeting, a hearing. The hearing's going to be on the Oregon Education Department, which is not a constitutional form of government. It's a usurpation and it's bogus. We have a revised statute on Oregon that says all students are supposed to get 5 years of constitutional and government training starting no later than the 8th grade. But they've decided to teach kindergartners about bisexuality and first and second graders about sodomy, and the rest of the kids about maybe they're not what their gender tells them when they decide to go to the toilet and they know who they are. They've confused the whole thing through the education department, which is unlawfully headed up by Kate Brown. And then she elects or sends or appoints a number 2 to run the education department, which usurps the superintendent of the school district with their supposed color of law authority. And almost every one of the superintendents accepted the mandates from Kate Brown, except one. Mark Thielman refused to do that when he was the superintendent of an Oregon school district. He's running for governor now. I hope you all vote for him. I'm an Oregonian man in the de jure. I can expatriate to being an Oregonian in the de facto and a U.S. citizen at my will, and I did. Again, I signed all the paperwork up and turned it in, and I'm now a registered Republican so that I can vote in the primary for Mark Thielman, which I will do. And that is one of our options. I hope you all do your very best to make the point. No matter what you think of the election system and how it's counted and how legal or illegal it can be, don't neglect the opportunity. If those of us that know the difference between de jure and de facto, and those of us that know the difference between Oregon and the state of Oregon, are willing to expatriate from land of the free and home of the brave, which is what we were taught and what we were raised to believe in, the de jure, and expatriate to the land of the coward and the home of the slave, which is what the de facto government is, in my estimation, to vote in the upcoming election for a governor from a man that I've talked to, and he's willing to put himself on the line for us and return Oregon to a constitutional Republican form of government. There's not many people around brave enough to do that, and we appreciate it. But in any case, we're going to have a grand jury. It's going to be on the 25th, and you know where to go to get it. So here's the deal. We have a flag, a civilian flag behind me. We also have a national ensign, which is the stars and stripes you see, without the gold fringe. We have a constitutional Republican form of government we're working to return, and we can get it done this year. We're going to do it by a grand jury method. We have a grand jury meeting on the 25th, and we have a candidate for governor that's on our side. So if you can, register as a Republican. You still have time, and vote for Mark Thielman. And I appreciate your help. Thank you.
I want to welcome Tina Tressel, a true courageous spirit who lives in Sweet Home School District. She's been a teacher, dedicated teacher of challenged children for over 20 years. and I'm going to introduce her here to tell her story briefly.
So my name is Tina Tressel, and I'm a special education teacher in the Sweet Home School District. And when COVID hit our district, they started telling us that we were going to either need to follow the mandates or we were going to be terminated. You know, either get the vaccination, sign an exception form, and wear a mask. Well, I felt like all of my inalienable rights were being taken from me, and I don't feel that I could not do that. My whole body, mind, and spirit, my conscience was telling me that not to do this. I knew this was wrong, and I just couldn't do it. I wanted to fill out a religious exception form because I'm very spiritual, but I just couldn't do that because I felt like God was telling me not to turn that form in, that it's not right, it's wrong, it's unlawful. And so I didn't turn that form in, and basically that, you know, I was basically put on administrative leave. I had a termination hearing with the school board, and, you know, almost half of the school board didn't want to terminate, but they had to because they were being coerced to do it, because that's what they were being told from higher up, from the Department of Ed and our governor and who knows where else. Anyways, I was terminated and I haven't been working, and I have an appeal tomorrow. And so I have an appeal speech that I'm going to say tomorrow, and I would like to share it with all of you. First of all, I want to thank all of the people who are here supporting me and the many who are here in spirit and prayer. I continue to believe that I was unlawfully terminated. Your legal classifications and labels of insubordination to my contract and my being neglectful of my duties as an employer absolutely do not apply to me. That I am even standing here and why so many of us have had to go through this dehumanization is beyond my understanding. These rules, mandates, and statutes are not legal, nor is there any federal law that can dictate to me, a flesh and blood, mind, body, spirit woman, that I must abandon my free will. My employer is not my doctor and cannot determine or recommend that I must take an experimental shot, test weekly, deprive me of oxygen by double masking, or ask me to profess my religious beliefs on a piece of paper. My employer neglected to consider my unalienable rights granted by God and codified and guaranteed by the United States of America's Constitution, 1859, and the Oregon's Constitution of 1859. I feel there is a giant elephant in this room, and if I am the only one who is brave enough to bring it up, then so be it. I know that I'm not the only one who feels in their heart that there is some serious injustice happening in our world right now. There is so much proof that these last 2 years have been playing out a sinister agenda, and that critically important information is being withheld from us. I cannot help but question, why are so many of you ignoring your own gut feeling? These shots are lethal. Our forefathers knew this day would come, that we, the people, would need to assemble and take a stand and say no. These oligopolists want to deny us our rights, make us take an experimental shot, damage our beautiful children who have virtually no chance of contracting this, deny us of oxygen, delve into our religious beliefs, and now give our babies authority to make decisions they are not ready to make, groom our babies about sexual orientation, and show them pornography. Regardless of others, I know I must stand against these harmful impositions on our precious children. I believe I'm not alone, and others are just fearful to say it, but I'm not. I won't ignore my chance to say what needs to be said. This is wrong. That others' behaviors and compliance shows ignorance. I do not consent to any of this, and I am appalled why so many of us has had to go through this dehumanization. There is so much wrong here, and yet I was unlawfully terminated based on lies. Any negligence is that of my employer who neglected to consider my unalienable rights. Under oath, you swore to abide by my Constitution and Bill of Rights, not the governor's unlawful rules, and not the elite oligopolists that think they can rule we the people. I pray that you search deep down in your soul and do what's right, not what they want. They are destroying our lives, our businesses, our families, and our country. What I want out of this is to be exonerated. You have slandered my name and my work record, which is a defamation of character based on a lie. Therefore, I demand my name and my record be purged of these wrongful accusations and labels, that I am also financially reimbursed for lost wages, restitution for all the years I've worked for the school district, and the pain and financial suffering that has caused my family. And lastly, to each and every one of you, your heart, your sensibility, and your conscience are all on the line here. And that kind of concludes how I feel about what's happening and how all of this is wrong. They're taking our freedoms away.
Thank you, Tina. I want to just let people know that we are in full support of Tina, and we have a small delegation of Assembly members who are going to be joining her tomorrow for her hearing. And we're going to be offering an amicus curiae in the form of a claim of cognizance, which is an issue of jurisdiction because Tina is a woman on Oregon. She's not a U.S. citizen. She's standing free and standing tall, and is not going to be a part of the lie that's being perpetrated on all of us, and especially horribly on our children. So, Tina, thank you so much for your courage and for your eloquence in delivering your message. And I hope that it goes broad. People need to stand up like you are. So thank you so much.
I'd like to say that you did an amazing job, Tina. Thank you so much for standing up for people. You are a lion. Thank you.
They do not want to let go of this. They do not intend on losing here. And we do not intend giving it back to them.
And then the bullets started flying. And then he jumps out of the car. And he's got both his hands up.
And he got out of the car, and he had his hands in the air. He's like, just shoot me then. This is what you want, to shoot me. And they did. They shot him dead. With his hands in the air, and I saw it. I swear to God. He was just walking with his hands in the air. And they shot him. And they shot him dead, and then after he was down on the ground, they shot him 3 more times.